This is Emily Jones from the Texas Rangers, and you're listening to the Fanatic podcast with Alex Plank.
What's going on, Rangers Nation? It's Alex Plank with Dallas Sports Fanatic, and this is the Texas Rangers Fanatic podcast, episode 24. A little bit of a hiatus with the regular season going, but that doesn't mean we're still here for you. It's been an exciting Rangers season, but I have a special guest today. You may know him if you've been watching Rangers baseball for a while, been noticing him. I will say I've noticed him, and my first question I will ask, but it is Mr. Dale Scott, former Major League umpire. Dale, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely glad to be here. Help out, love to be talking Ranger baseball, right?
It's been an exciting season. I mean, right. I know the club's 18-19, but this is a fun group, and I'm sure in your line of work you've seen a lot of fun teams in the club. Regarding like teams in the clubhouse, on the field, there's such a great feeling among there. And I'm sure you've had experiences with like teams that look the part and then some that don't necessarily look the part.
Well, I think a lot of times a fun group of, a team with good camaraderie and a fun group, sometimes that stops short when it comes to umpires. So it's not quite the same. But that's, there was, for example, in 2004, I had the World Series when Boston broke the streak and swept the Cardinals. Of course, they beat the Yankees in the LCS after being down 3-0. That group was pretty loose and pretty funny. I mean, Kevin Millar is, I think certifiable.
Kevin Millar is be a ball of fun.
Well, yeah, on the field, you really didn't know what he was going to do or say, which kept you on your toes. But yeah, so there have been teams in the past that are kind of a fun group and it translate even to umpires at times. But other fun groups are not that much fun when you call them out on strikes. So it's not.
So if folks were to ask me in your childhood, who are the umpires you remember the most? I've got a list of 3 for me. Jim Joyce.
Okay.
Paul Emmel.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale Scott.
Well,
and Dale, I have to ask you, because this is the question that's been burning my mind. Your strike call. Where did, and if I can, so if I remember correctly, and I made sure not to look at this because I wanted to test myself. Strike call, you turn to your left and do a little finger point.
Well, my mechanic for a called strike has, like most umpires, when they have a long career, has kind of, morphed into different things. At one point I used to on left-handed hitters on a strike, I would actually go to my left instead of my right. But then for the last several years, I would go to my right on a called strike, but on strike 3, I would go to my left and punch him out that way. And I have to say, not doing that for any other reason except I picked it up from other guys and picked up this here and this there, and I was very comfortable and relaxed with it. But I have to say, I have been complimented zillions of times from fans, amateur umpires that have all said that they love my strike call, especially my strike 3 call.
Right.
So I don't know. It's I got something going for me, I guess.
Strike, and you know what? To be honest, it's between you for strike 3 call and Tom Hallion.
Well, Tom Hallion is a whole different case. Tommy and I were actually hired on the same day in 1986. Him in the National League and myself in the American League. We worked together in winter ball in the Dominican one year, and Tommy's strike 3. And Tommy and I are about the same age. I think he might be a year older or something, but his strike 3, when I see it on TV, my body aches after watching it because I don't know how he does that without throwing out something, especially, now that we're in our 60s. But it is a classic strike 3 call. There's no doubt.
I don't know how he hasn't thrown his back out. I've
Exactly.
always called it a howl to the moon.
Well,
because that's what it looks like.
I keep wanting to, hold his tongue. I think he's having a seizure. I'm just not sure what he was doing, but you're exactly right as far as throwing his back out or a hip or something, because it's pretty intense, but it's certainly unique. There's no doubt.
And one of the things, and we'll get to some of the things regarding, instant replay on there, but I want to get to the fun stuff regarding. It was interesting having a conversation with Nate Lowe yesterday, because one of the questions that he asked by Rangers TV announcer Dave Raymond, he talks a lot at first base, whether he's on first base, whether he's at first base defensively. And he was asked like those conversations. And I've kind of wondered at first base, what those conversations are. Are they just like casual conversations like you have at the water cooler, or are they about the game?
They can be just about anything, quite frankly. I mean, there's some players that are just talkers, and they just talk. I'll never forget one time I had the Reds at Old Shea Stadium, and the Mets were bottom of the ninth. The Mets were rallying. They were behind, but they were rallying. They had a couple outs. They had the tying run at second, I think, or something, and pretty intense part of a baseball game. And I'm working first, and Joey Votto, there's a pitch fouled off, and all of a sudden, I'm just minding my own business, kind of focusing on the game. And Joey goes, "You like Seinfeld?" Me? Yeah, I like Seinfeld. Great show. Next pitch, it's fouled off or something. He goes, "Kramer's pretty funny." I go, "Yeah, he is fun." I'm thinking to myself, is this really the time? It was like a Seinfeld episode is what we were doing. It basically is in the bottom of the ninth with the game on the line, suddenly we're talking about Kramer. So that was, a Kramer kind of thing to do. But some guys just talk. There are some catchers. I remember Rich Garcia, who I worked with, for several years. He was my crew chief. But Bob Guerin, who I believe is the bench coach for the Dodgers now, I think. But he was a catcher, and he just talked. I mean, he would just talk all the time. And I remember Garcia at one point, he told me this, told us this after the game. He said at one point, he said, "Bob, will you shut up? I'm trying to focus here." Just like, shut up, quit talking. I was never a big talker. Obviously I would respond or something if somebody was asking me about Seinfeld, for example, but I wasn't a huge, talker. And it depends on the player also and the situation, but those conversations can be about, practically anything really.
Was there, outside of Joey Votto, was there any other like major talkers or most memorable conversations?
Right offhand, I can't think of anything that, that comes to mind. I mean, you'll get guys that when they're running onto the field, coming back on defense, especially like an outfielder or something, and you're the second base umpire, first base, and you're kind of in shallow right field as they're changing up. They may come by and have, say something or whatever. But, Ken Griffey used to, every once in a while, stop and, say something or whatever. It's really one of those things that it's usually very organic. It just happens, It's not pre-planned. I do know that there's been a couple of cases where a rookie player that happened to play at Oregon State, and I'm a big Oregon Duck fan. So Oregon State, of course, is a huge rival. And I would, they'd be coming around, they'd run out someday. And I know their background. Of course, usually they don't have any idea about me, but, and I'll say, "Hey, so-and-so, what would you say if I told you I'm an Oregon Duck fan?" Like, "Well, I think that's great. I love the Pac-12. That's all good." They don't want to get on my back. But again, it's all over the spectrum. Some guys talk a lot, some don't. Some talk about things that relate to the game. Others are asking you if you like Kramer. So it's really it's all over the place.
I've always wondered how those manager kind of heated. We don't see those much anymore, but the manager heated like ejections or those arguments that take place. Is it like hockey fights in a sense where you get heated at the moment and then the next day you're just like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" Like, it's just no big deal.
Well, we're taught at umpire school, day one of umpire school. I mean, each game is a new game. And so if you have a run in with a player or a manager, the next game is a new game and you start with a clean slate. Now, that being said, and players under that, they understand that too, from the standpoint, they're playing a ton of games. So, you can't just continually hold a grudge on one play for every game, and continually be arguing, because it's going to be a long year. But we certainly know the guys that have something to say all the time and the guys that just once in a while. And so, if a guy's had a long rap sheet, meaning he's been ejected a lot, he's always in the thick of things, you're probably not going to give him as much leeway when he starts going off, because you know how he is. That's how he operates. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to reject him. It just means that you're probably, you've been through this before, either yourself or other umpires. You know how this person has been through his career, and so you take that into account. Conversely, if you have a guy that rarely says anything, and now he's jumping up and down, kind of upset, sometimes you'll kind of reevaluate in your mind. Well, if he rarely says anything, maybe I need to refocus on this or whatever. A guy like Derek Jeter, who had a long, obviously outstanding career, was never ejected. There was a couple times he came close, but he was never ejected. But I've had instances when I've called him out on strikes, and that ball's outside as he's walking. He's not causing a ruckus. He's just letting me know that he disagrees, and I'll say, well, I got it on the plate, Derek, or whatever. But when he says that to me, okay, maybe I'll.
You think twice a little bit, like.
Well, I still, I'm not saying I'm wrong now because he said something, but the fact that he's saying something and he's not a guy that's going to bitch on anything,
right?
You take notice. But a guy that is constantly questioning pitches all the time, and they're you just take it with a grain of salt, because that's it's like crying wolf. You cry wolf enough times, you're not going to get a lot of credibility when you cry wolf. A time maybe that you should be crying wolf, because you do it all the time.
One of the things I'm intrigued on as far as umpire schedule this year and last year, I don't know if you talked to anyone who's in the league now, but it seems like they're more like, for the Rangers, for instance, this is their third consecutive series with the same crew pretty much. There's some variance, but is that, I don't know if that was a case prior to 2020. And if it wasn't, how would that be if you're seeing like the same team for over the course of a week and a half?
Well, it's not ideal for the teams or the umpires. It is because of COVID. They did it last year in the short season, and they're doing it at least at the beginning of this year for sure. If not for the entire year, they're doing it this year. They just want to, umpires travel by commercial airline. They're not charters, so they're trying to cut back on travel for umpires on commercial airlines. Frankly, I mean, there's the schedule. They'll be on charters with teams sometimes and stay with teams for a series or two. If there is a chance to, let's say you're going from Chicago to Milwaukee, or you're not staying with the team, or you're going from somewhere you can drive, or Philadelphia to Baltimore or something, instead of a flight, then they encourage, and I think they want you to drive at this point. Now that may all loosen up as we go on through the season, although the season schedule may be set up now that they're not going to make a lot of changes, but certainly with vaccinations, with everything that's going on, that will loosen up, and it should. It's not ideal to be with the team all the time. It's just, there's going to be stuff that isn't agreed upon. And so if you have some kind of a situation in your first couple of games and you're with them 9 in a row or 12 in a row, that can make for kind of a long 12 games, and everybody's trying to be professional about it. I have talked to some of the guys working, and again, last year, because going on a team charter is so foreign and for both, squads. But they've told me, hey, everybody's been real professional. Everybody understands why it's happening, and it hasn't blown up to any, real big situation. But once we get through this COVID stuff, we're on the back end of it now. It'll get back to where you're not seeing the umpires as much.
I think it goes back to your take one game at a time, and it's Yeah, I think especially from an umpire's perspective, like, I mean, the traveling part, I'm sure is incredibly fun, to where you can go to each ballpark, and if you're having to relegate to the same team or having to stay in the same, if it's a homestand for, let's say, the Rangers, and it's like a 7-8 game homestand, and you're having to stay there all 8 games. I mean, that could get kind of, and especially if maybe night 4 isn't a good night. And then I mean, we're all human, so it rolls.
Right.
It does
Right.
roll over. You're professional about it, but it still rolls over.
Well, it's human nature. You know, if there's, and you know, sometimes the baseball gods just aren't nice. You know, you just may have, as an umpire, you may have, you know, maybe you miss a call, maybe you don't, but it's a big call in a big situation, a big pitch that could go either way, type of thing. And so, you know, now the next game you have something over here, and now the next game you have, and pretty soon it's this mentality that, you know, this crew or this, you know, particular umpire, you know, has it out for us, which isn't the you know, reality, but understandably so as humans. It's, you know, plus as far as superstition, you know, I mean,
Yes.
if a team has lost 3-4 in a row with the same crew, they want to see a different crew. Now,
Absolutely.
it may have nothing to do with the crew, but you know, that's how players and teams are, is let's you know, let's change something because it's not working. So you know, I think again we'll get through that, and it'll be more comfortable for everybody, really. But umpires are staying at team hotels, which we never do, you know, pre-COVID, because they're, you know, baseball, rightfully so, especially last year, you know, but this year too, you know, because we're not quite there yet, but rightfully so. They're just trying to keep the exposure for players, for umpires, anybody that's involved. Keep it low, the exposure low of the public and that kind of stuff, and try to get through this. Yeah, as you know, just a couple positive COVID tests spreads through a clubhouse or something.
Yeah.
It can just cause complete havoc for a schedule, for everything. So they're a little bit maybe over the top on some of these protections, but you understand why.
I'm curious, and this is going to tie into one of our next subjects regarding instant replay, because I know that's everybody's favorite subject. Are you kind of glad that with all the technology having, and you're seeing like umpire zones, and they basically stack up umpires, that you don't have to kind of deal with that now? Is that something you like, or is it a good evaluation to say, am I doing a good job?
You're talking about the automated zone or something?
Yeah, just like it's so nowadays, especially within the last 10 years, there's such a variant on pitch tracker to where everybody could see, okay, was that a good call? Was that a bad call? Now you're having evaluations, game scores.
Well, you know, it's a little deceiving. First of all, the pitch track that people see on their screen is not as especially high-low, as accurate as what we're evaluating. And the reason I say that is because on the screen, you have different heights. Obviously, the width of the plate never changes,
right?
But you have different heights on different hitters. And with our evaluations, when the game is over, a human goes through every called pitch and checks to make sure the lines are correct, the high-low lines for that particular batter, because obviously they change for each hitter, and they actually change within the same hitter. They can change, because if you are, you know, by rule, the height and the low of the strike zone is determined when he's about to or attempting to hit the ball or strike at the ball. So if you're, for example, bunting the ball or a drag bunt or something, your strike zone your high-low zone may be a little bit different than if you are just taking a full swing and that kind of stuff. It doesn't vary a lot, but it varies enough to where, you know, when we're talking about quarter of an inch or something difference for a strike or a ball, you have to be pretty accurate with that. The stuff you see on TV is relatively accurate on inside outside. High-low is a little bit different story, because it may register as high, but if you actually went in and made sure the lines were correct, the high line, maybe it's not high, or vice versa. So, you know, you have that, but you know, the thing with technology is you're never going to outrun it.
Right.
As umpires, you know, something, you know, in technology, there's something new every hour, it seems. And you have people at home with, you know, 70-inch screens, and you have technology and cameras and high definition and all the things that are going on and just every year improving. So, we're pretty good, but I'm not sure if we can beat technology. Okay.
Right.
Especially when you have multiple cameras and super slow-mo and stuff. And we have one chance to look at something. So that's just reality. So, in general, just getting on replay a little bit in general, and I was saying this from when it was expanded in 2014 and I say it now, it's not going to, and we've seen it, it's not going to cure everything. Once we had replay, people thought, oh, we'll never have a missed call again. Well, that's just not true. And there are, just like umpires make mistakes, replay technology sometimes will make a mistake or just won't come up with what we want to see. The camera angle isn't quite what we need, or that perfect angle is great until right when the play happens, the on deck hitter gets in the way of the play at the plate and you have no view of the tag or whatever that might be. So it is a tool to try to correct obvious mistakes, but certain plays are going to be, I had before replay. I had the 99 LCS with the Yankees Red Sox at first base game 4, I believe. And in Fenway, bottom of the ninth, the first hitter was Nomar. He hit one in the hole, kind of the throw. It is a whacker at first. I call him out. One replay, when I saw it afterwards, one looked like he was out, one looked like he was safe. I mean, it depended on the camera angle and that kind of stuff. So you're never going to have always 100% the definitive look and no controversy. You're gonna have it. Okay, so as fans, I wish they could just realize that, yes, technology and replay has made it better. We have corrected a lot of mistakes that, thankfully we have, but it's not 100% pure. I always say, let's say you have runners at first and second, nobody out. Ground ball to the shortstop. I mean, a perfect double play ball right there. And it goes between his legs. So are we going to say, well, after review, he usually makes that play, so we're going to give him 2 outs? Of course not. Okay. He made a mistake. It happens. We have to realize that as much as we try not to make mistakes and as much as we would like to be perfect and then get better, that's just not 100% always going to happen, even with replay. And it's sometimes you hear about the breaks of the game, and sometimes it. Now, I'm not saying that as an excuse for us to miss plays. Right. Even when I was on the field with replay, when I missed a play and replay corrected it and we moved on, but I'm not happy. I'm happy that we got it corrected because that alleviates all that. And even though we may not have looked good doing it, we got it right. But personally, I'm still graded down, first of all, in my evaluation. But personally, I am upset that I missed the play, and I'm always upset I miss a play or a pitch, because that's not what you want to do, and that's not what you're striving to do. So, but it can happen. And let's be honest here, that pitch track system, and what we see, the ball, the plate is 17 inches wide. The ball is 2 1/4 inches. And if the ball, is over any part of the plate, so that makes the plate actually about, 21 inches wide or so. I mean, because of the ball, on each end could still nick the corner. So not trying to be technical, but sometimes I don't know how those are aligned, or if it has to touch the line, or if it's just off the line. Is that take into account the width of the ball? I don't know that. And when you are talking again about quarters of an inch, eighths of an inch difference of a strike or a ball, a strike 3 or a ball 4, that's important to know. And so again, those can be a little deceiving. I don't know if they do it anymore. TBS used to say the strike zone, whatever they called it, on the screen, is a facsimile of the strike zone. Meaning it's not perfect, but it gives you a pretty good idea of the location and that kind of stuff. Again, people don't care about that. They see what they see. He missed it. Screw him. So that's what they think. I understand that, but I think there's a little bit more nuance to it than people take into account.
I think it's interesting. And I want to kind of ask you for two things based on your opinion, but I feel like with the strike zone, if you go to like an automated strike zone, it's got to be similar to tennis, where if the ball touches the line at all, like when there's a challenge, if the ball touches the line at all, it is considered in. And I wonder, I don't know how they do it with the automated strike zone or what the proposal is, but I feel like that's kind of what you have to do is if it touches that box at all, even if it's just a tick, then it's considered a strike. That's how I feel it should, because how can you, is it halfway? Is it 3/4? Then you start if it touches it at all. But as an umpire, would you be in favor of an automated strike zone?
Well, I be careful what you ask for. Let me put it this way. The strike zone is three-dimensional. It starts at the beginning of the front edge of the plate. It ends at the very point back edge of the plate. It's obviously the width of the plate including the width of the baseball. And it's also, from the point halfway between the shoulders and the high point on the hitter, which changes like we talked about every hitter and possibly every swing, depending on what they're doing. And also the hollow of the knee. So you have that. By rule, if any pitch enters any part of the strike zone, it is to be considered a strike. Okay, fine. So the pitcher throws a ball that hits the very front edge of the plate on the very outside corner at the very hollow at the knee, but the movement is still going down and it is actually caught 2 or 3 inches outside and just off the ground. Technically, that is a strike.
Yeah.
Almost no umpire will call that a strike because it's just not accepted as a strike, even though by rule it is. A computer or something, automated zone, they don't know that. I always say there's a science to umpiring and an art. The computer will know the science because it says, "Oh, that's in the zone. It nicked this part of the zone. That is a strike." It doesn't have any art to it. Us guys, the umpires, the real humans, have the we know the rule. We know it's supposed to be any part of the zone. We also understand that a pitch that just nicks that corner and is caught on the ground a couple inches outside, nobody expects that to be a strike. Maybe the pitcher does because he left his hand. He wants everything a strike. But the point is, if I start calling those strikes, which technically are strikes, I'm going to have both dugouts screaming. Okay. So a machine doesn't take into account that the nuances of rules and of those types of things. So, that being said, maybe they can program it to where it doesn't do that, or maybe they can do that. I don't know that. I know calling pitches is a very difficult thing to do. I know it's something that you just don't pick up, after doing it for a couple innings. I mean, I worked, 5 years in the minor leagues. I worked 2 years in the Dominican Republic. My 2 years in the Dominican Republic, I had more plate games in 3 months than I would have in 6 months in the big leagues. So I saw a ton of pitches before I ever got to the big leagues, and just repetition to get some semblance of a very consistent and understanding the strike zone. Do we miss pitches? Of course we do. My God, yes. The key is hopefully you don't miss a pitch in a key situation. It's the key is basically. But there's a lot, again, talking about replaying everything, there's a lot of pitches that are borderline, could go either way pitches. And you're going to look at it and say, that's a strike. And I'm going to look at it and say, that's a ball. And it's the same pitch. And we're both right or we're both wrong. So again, I think people are trying to find that perfect thing that there will never be any controversy, and it just isn't out there. Okay. Now, it looks like we're heading toward a automated strike zone. You still have a plate umpire. He's got a rule on, if the ball's fouled or if it's, interference or, plays with the plate, or if for some reason there's a glitch in the technology on the pitch, you have to call the pitch, which I think as an umpire would be really extremely difficult because. Oh,
absolutely. You're not expecting
now you're supposed to be focused for every pitch, but you don't call them unless you have to call them. All of a sudden you have to call one. And it's like, that's not necessarily fair. I'm sure, I'm well out of it. It's not going to affect me. I don't necessarily, I'm not for it, but I also understand that, everything's pointing that direction. It's going to happen, I think. So, and part of me says, you know what? Hey, okay, fine. Let it, you guys call the pitches, and we've already had it in the Atlantic League when they had an ejection just the other day. I think it was on a called strike 3 by the computer. And the player, chewed out the umpire on the plate that didn't have anything to do with it. But,
right. It's kind of like on a replay review when the umpire's on the field, they get the call. I'm curious to know how those conversations go, but I'm sure the umpires on the field, they don't make those calls. So when a manager yells at an umpire on a replay review, it's kind of like, well, I don't know why you're getting mad at me, especially when it's overturned, because I agreed with you initially.
Well, they're going to yell at somebody. I mean, that's,
right.
And it's, again, the frustrations, it's tough to take frustrations out on a computer, for an automated strike call or whatever. Again, these are growing pains that baseball is going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
The replay thing, we're still dealing with that now, as things go on, but this automated zone and that kind of stuff, it's something that baseball is going to have to, players and managers and media and fans are going to have to deal with as we go forward, another, there's always seems to be unintended consequences when these things happen. And one of them with replay is this sliding into second and you come off just a tad off the base, and
Stolen
the fielder
bases.
keeps the glove on it, because as you notice, that's all they do now is keep the glove on it for obvious reason. That's a cheap out. That's not why replay is there. But how do you correct that? He's off the base and being tagged, and do you say, well, only if he goes off 2 inches, or less, or, I mean, now we're getting, it's like, that's an unintended consequence of replay, is these cheap outs. But, that's part of the game. I mean, if you're going to go with this, any runner that's, when the live ball is being tagged by a live ball and he's off the base, he's out, period. That's just the way it is.
I thought it was interesting last week. I asked Chris Woodward this because there was a play in Minnesota where Arias came home and I guess he missed the plate, and there was a bowl over, a collision at the plate with Jose Trevino. Then Arias touches the plate. Didn't look like Trevino, the glove, touched Arias in any way, but he was already called out. And then replay overturned it to safe. And I asked Chris Woodward, do you have to teach your guys to keep playing on even though an umpire has already made a call and the play supposedly it's gone? And he said, yeah, you even if the umpire makes the call, unless you know for a fact that you made the tag, you play on as if no call has been made. And that's something that replay has changed the game. Right. Once the umpire's call's made, used to be where that's it, play is dead. Right. That's not the case anymore.
No. And again, that's changing the way you play the game a little bit because of replay. I mean, like I just said about a fielder leaving a tag on a guy, the guy's safe. It's not even that close, but he's going to leave the glove on it just because if he pops up just a little bit and we got a shot on a camera, we're going to go to replay, and guess what? He's going to be called out. So. Yeah, it's, that's not why replay was put in. But again, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, we have replay, but only you can't count that one. Well, what do you mean you can't count that one? I mean, that's,
So I guess the question then, what I was asking Chris Woodward and Charlie Culberson, I know there's certain judgment calls, but should every play be, because there's some plays that we know it's not reviewable because it's a judgment call, but should those be reviewable? You, as a manager, you get 2 challenges. If it's kind of like the NFL, you get 2 challenges, and if you challenge one and it's stands or confirmed, then you lose that, and you can only challenge 2 a game. But every single play is reviewable. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, off the top of my head, no, I don't. But first of all, you'd be going to the headsets a lot more because let's say, it's overturned, so that he keeps his challenge. So, I mean, do we want a video game or a baseball game? All right. So do we want to, and we're already, people are bitching and moaning about replay takes too long, or, why are they going to the headsets now? Or, baseball games, and baseball has been trying desperately to bring, game times down. They would like to play a game in a 3-hour window or less. That's their broadcast window. They don't want anything, past that. But I don't even know what the average 9-inning game is for this year. I know when I, early in the, let's see, I came in 86. I remember like in the late 90s, we were at, the average game was at 307 or 306 or something. That's just the average. That's not even counting extra innings, because they didn't count those when they were just talking about 9-inning games. Baseball takes a long time. There's no clock, there's clock now a little bit, but, but anyway, my point is, if you're going to keep having umpires go to the headsets over challenges and reviews, and that's reviewable and this reviewable, I mean, we got to find a happy medium. I think there's certainly the challenge system is one that needs to, be there and be, you can't just let a lot of things be going to the headsets all the time, because baseball games are going to take forever and people are going to lose interest. You got to remember too, the attention span of the American public nowadays with our phones and things is really short. True baseball fans, they love the nuances of the game, the strategies, the stepping off, the blah, 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 they understand that, but that's not that's not what's going to keep baseball afloat. You also need the casual fans. You need the fans that are maybe not every day, but you get them a few times and that kind of stuff. And you're not going to get that if games continue to just drag and drag and drag. So when they, the rule for COVID, but the rule of putting the guy at second base in extra innings, they tried it and did it in minor leagues for a while. Purists are up. I mean, they're just going, their heads explode. They can't even fathom something like that. But it's kind of like hockey when they used to just have overtime until somebody won. And they said, this isn't working, so we'll do a short overtime and this and that. If nothing, and then we'll do a shootout. And at first people were saying, oh, that's terrible. That's not hockey. People love it now. I mean, the shootout can be very exciting. Is it fair after two teams playing for 60 plus minutes and tooth and nail that it comes down to that? Well, I don't know, but guess what? The game's got to end sometime. You're playing 80 some games. Let's just it's everybody's doing the same thing. Let's try to keep the flavor of the game, but also understand that it's a different viewing audience and a different fan base than just the purists, and go forward from there. So I don't blame him for that.
I think, and to that point with the runner at second, I can't think of a game. I think just the Phillies and Braves is the first game that this year I could think of that has gone 12 innings or more. I think any other extra inning has either ended in the 10th or the 11th. So to that point, I'm 50-50 on it. I know they've talked about trying out doing a home run derby in extras. I think that's going too far.
That to me is stupid. I mean,
but I get what they're trying, especially last year with the COVID situation and the 7-inning doubleheaders. I do feel like I'm not too fond of the 7-inning doubleheaders. More so,
you've never worked a doubleheader, and that's why.
Yes,
you got. I would love a 7-inning doubleheader. But just purely as an umpire, and we don't.
I know. And both sides to it. I think because if you're dealing with a team that with 7 innings, it's not an even over the cross. So like the St. Louis Cardinals last year had so many 7-inning games. Can you really say that they had earned a spot outside of another team that had played a lot more innings, more 9-inning games? It just doesn't create that balance, and so that's why I didn't particularly. I know why they did it last year.
Yeah, and the balance was whacked because of COVID, and teams weren't playing for a while, and this and that. I mean, you could conversely say, because first of all, doubleheader, non-COVID years and all that, so doubleheaders aren't scheduled very often. They used to be scheduled all the time, but you also play a 9-inning game in an hour and 45 minutes, and that's just doesn't happen. Now you have them. Rarely are they scheduled. Originally, a lot of times they're scheduled because of a rain out and that kind of stuff, and it's a makeup game. But I mean, you could conversely say, well, the Cardinals had a bunch of 7-inning games, so is that really fair? Well, that's true. But in a regular season, you may have a team that had 7 doubleheaders and a team in their division that never had any, and so in split, you say, well, man, they had to play 3 split doubleheaders. And those are long days. And so, you could probably argue either way. The point is it the same for everybody? And is it, I think really a stronger argument for a lot of people that 7 innings is versus 9 is look at how many teams either have just shut down relief pitching, or how many teams have in the last 7th, 8th, and 9th rallied, and that's when the bats come out. I mean, you can look at stats. We know baseball has a ton of stats, but I mean, I remember the A's back in the late 80s when they were dominating the American League for 3 years, and Eckersley was was the guy as far as shutting them down, closing the game off or whatever. I mean, it was almost as if you didn't have, if the A's had the lead after you batted in the 7th, you're done. You're I mean, statistically, you're pretty much done because you're not gonna score in the 8th and 9th. I mean, it's just not gonna happen. Of course, that could all be, if it's 7 innings, you move all that up, but it does it'll change the dynamics. But I tell you, as an umpire, having a guy
I know you guys probably love it.
I mean, my longest plate game was 6 hours and 30 minutes, 19 innings. I would have loved to have a runner at second, starting those innings to try to get through that son of a gun, because that was a long.
What game was that, by the way? I might remember it.
That was Boston at Cleveland. It was Cleveland's home opener in 1992.
Okay, no, I don't remember. I was 1 year old, so I don't remember.
Exactly. But it was it was at the old stadium, the old Mistake by the Lake in Cleveland. 1:15 start, day game turned into a night game, I believe.
Last thing on replay, I'm just curious so when you go to the headset, what's that conversation like?
Well, I always used to go. I would always, I used to work in radio, as you can tell from my radio voice, and I used to, depending on what city I was in, I was, and of course, replays in Chelsea. Chelsea, this is a city by the bay, San Francisco. We've got an issue, or something like that. Or my favorite was when I was in Houston. Hello, Chelsea, this is Houston. We've got a problem. But by the time I come over to headsets, they obviously know what's happening, and they've already started looking, and they may even have an answer if it's depending on how long it took to get the headset or whatever. But it's just, and a lot of times the field umpire has no idea who's on the other end of that headset. We know that which 2 crews are working replay that week, but a lot of times you won't know. Sometimes you do. The guy, sometimes I would text, Ted Barrett was on the field and I was working his game and replay. Hey, Teddy, I'm your man today or whatever, just to let him know. But so you get on there and Chelsea, this is San Francisco, and you go, hey Dale, what's up? I'd say, well, they're challenging blah 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 blah. You go, yeah, let me take a look at it. We're looking right now or whatever, and you just wait for them to go through their process, and sometimes that's quicker than others. Overall, from when replay started to now, the times have gotten better every year because everybody's gotten better at it as far as how certain plays we know exactly what camera angles to go to and this and that. Plus we have more stationary cameras now in every ballpark, so that helps a lot, where you just have more looks and more angles. You have to remember when in replay they have the looks of both broadcasts, where if you're watching the Ranger game, you just have the Ranger broadcast. You don't have the Toronto broadcast, who has a whole set of their own cameras or whatever that Chelsea has. It's not Chelsea anymore, but New York has access to. And sometimes the definitive replay is not the replay that you as a viewer will see. They send that to the Texas broadcast, whoever's doing the broadcast, and they may show that a half inning later or something, or when they can. Here's the view that was the definitive view, blah blah blah, which will make more sense to a viewer, because if Texas didn't have a very good view of it, yet it was changed or something, they'll go, what's going on? But it's because it was seen. It was just a view that you haven't seen yet as a Texas viewer. But anyway, so that's what's happening there, and when you're in replay, if I'm the replay official, I'm monitoring 2 games.
Okay.
And I'm here with the technician, and I've got 2 games going. And it doesn't mean I'm just sitting there staring at both games. It's just, you're monitoring it because you don't need
saves
into
time
action.
if they call you and you're, like you said, they may be right on it.
Well,
so,
any close call, we're already looking at, even if they don't come to replay,
right.
We're already looking, because we don't know, they may come, they may be a challenge or whatever.
Right.
A lot of times we're looking already. Oh, they're not challenging. Okay, fine. So we move on. But if they, if it's, oh, that's a close one, so we're already boom, boom, boom. And there's a announcement in the room, station 6, and so that means all the advanced technicians are looking at all the replays from both the broadcast or a third broadcast if there happens to be a national broadcast and whatever, but all the broadcasts that are available. My technician is now getting feedback not only from looking at our stuff, but from the advanced technicians saying, check out feed blah blah blah. They have their own little terminology that I don't have to deal with. Now, as umpires, I've got a couple partners that are monitoring their own games. Once they hear that station 6 has a replay, they'll walk over and they'll stand behind me and they're going to watch this with me. Now, obviously, they're still responsible for their games, and if something happens in their games, they immediately go back to their station. But otherwise, so I'll watch this and say, all right, slow that down. Okay, give me this angle here. All right, slow that down. Yeah, it looks like and I'll say, I've got a tag, guys. What do you got? And yeah, I got a tag. Yeah, or somebody might say, well, I don't know, try this other, just to you have other sets of eyes on it. Although it's my responsibility ultimately when I tell the field umpire whatever I'm going to tell him. But you have other sets of eyes to help you decipher what's going on. And then you say, yeah, I've got to definitely. Okay. Hey, Teddy, we got a tag on that. We're going to confirm that, or whatever.
Right.
And that's basically what happens.
That's awesome. That is awesome. But no, that's good, because I didn't know if there was, everybody is congened into one, but it sounds like, yeah, you have your specific ones that you're responsible for. And then if there's like an instance where it's like a Wednesday afternoon or even a Tuesday afternoon game where there's one game that's going on, you've got more sets of eyes on there rather than like a Friday night.
Well, if there's only one game going, there's only going to be one umpire there.
Okay.
Yeah, you won't have guys there. The reason most of the time there's other guys there because there's other games being played.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. There may be a Wednesday afternoon, game, just one day game, a noon start in, New York or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's just you and your technician and the advanced technicians. And I mean, that's a situation where you're on your own. I mean, you don't have help from guys. In fact, if there's 2 day games, starting at the same time or within a half hour each other, it's only going to be one umpire. You're never assigned more than 2 games.
Okay.
But to monitor 2 games. But sometimes you're only monitoring one. Late at night, a game's still going on in the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you didn't even start till 10 in New York time, or sometimes even 10:30 is your game time on the West Coast is 7:30. And then, maybe you and the technician and a few guys there till 3 a.m. or whatever, because of a long game there. So, so the place is, from the first pitch, wherever that is on any certain day until the last out or walk off. There's people there.
So Dale, I want to get your thoughts on this, and I'm sure you've been asked this a lot. 2015 ALDS Game 5.
You'll see what happened.
And this is actually fitting because Rougned Odor with the New York Yankees, yes, he's on the IL, but he's scheduled to return this upcoming Sunday. And so hopefully the Yankees will activate him and he'll be ready to go for the 4-game series in Arlington, which is his first time back after being let go by the Rangers and signed by the Yankees. What a career it was for Rougned Odor, and most notably, everyone remembers 2 big moments. Well, one big moment, because he was a part of the run score, but I want to get your thoughts on the 2015 ALDS Game 5. First of all, do you even know what happened before the first 6 innings? Because I actually had to look up and see what happened.
Well, do I know what happened? No, not really. I was just focused working the game. I know nothing real controversial happened, or that 7th inning was, I worked 103 games short of 4,000 games. I've never quite seen anything like that 7th inning, that game in Toronto. A deciding Game 5. I'm behind the plate. if somebody had told me right when I was leaving the locker room there at Rogers Center, oh, by the way, Dale, you're going to have a play you've never seen before. You're going to have a protest. There's going to be 2 ejections. You're going to have to stop the game several times. 1, because debris on the field and fans going crazy, and 2, because the players are coming out and they want to beat each other up. So that's what's going to happen today. Go get them. And I probably said, I might just retire right now.
Do you guys joke sometimes going into a game, and not just like a regular season game, where it's like, hey, what's something that we're going to see that we haven't seen before, or what part of the rule book are we going to have to look at?
Well, what's funny is sometimes something will come up. Maybe it's a game that was played elsewhere or whatever, and we'll be in the locker room and we'll say, it's kind of a strange rule or a strange thing, and so we'll talk about it, and then sure as heck we'll say, okay, we're going to get this now. You realize, of course, that we are now going to get this when we walk out there. But no, I didn't joke that the catcher was going to hit the hitter with the baseball inadvertently and have it squirt over and have a run score and then have a bat flip and have I didn't say all that. I just didn't. You walk into those realizing that anything can happen. That's with any game. I mean, you never know if you're going to go out there and it's a perfect game, or you go out there and there's 20 runs scored in the first inning. You just don't know what's going to happen. But you are just hoping that you're prepared and ready for practically anything. And that was one of those things, I mean, how many times have I seen a catcher throw the ball back to the pitcher after a pitch in my career? I've had 1,000 plate games or whatever. I mean, I've seen it a lot. I've never seen a guy do this, just get lazy, a little lazy or a little sloppy, and hit the hitter who was doing nothing wrong. I mean, he wasn't trying to get hit; he was just standing there, and it was just as bizarre as you can get. And you got to remember too, the Rangers went up with Odor scoring, and of course the whole brouhaha and the protest and everything that was going on with that. But the reason they got in trouble in the bottom of the 7th is because they made like 2 errors in a row, or 2 or 3. I mean, it was
Andrews, a good shortstop at the time, and they
just so uncharacteristically blew it several times, and gave the Blue Jays 5-6 outs, something like that. In that Batista would have never got up if they make the plays and that kind of stuff. And that's that's the game of baseball, man. You never know what's going to happen. But as I've said before, I've heard a lot of loud crowds. That crowd there in Toronto was rabid. I mean, loud, intense from pitch one. I mean, it was funny. One of my partners at one point, when we were having had to stop the game because debris and stuff going on, and they're picking it up. And one of my partners said, "Man, I thought Canadians were pretty, mellow, really polite dudes." And I said, "These are hockey fans. You got to remember, these people love hockey." And so this is kind of a extension of that. But it was so loud. And when Batista hit that, it was so loud when I scored Odor, and everybody went goofy.
Loud in the opposite way. Right.
Loud and throwing stuff. At one point, there was a Toronto policeman next to me as they were cleaning stuff up and stuff was being thrown. He said, "I don't know what your plan is when this game's over, but I would really recommend that you and your buddies get off this field as quickly as possible." And I said, "That's exactly what we're going to do."
And that's good as a game 5, because regardless, there's not a game 6. So you gotta get. Do you remember the conversations you had with Jeff Bannister and John Gibbons?
Well, Jeff came out, when the ball hit,
Chu.
Thank you, Chu's bat and scattered off. I mistakenly called timeout. That's a live ball, and I mistakenly called timeout because I had a situation with in Milwaukee earlier where it's a runner at first, less than 2 outs, ball's in the dirt, hitter swings and misses, the ball's hits the catcher and comes out in front of the plate. The hitter, after he swings and misses, as he's walking to the dugout, no intent, he inadvertently kicks the ball. The runner runs to second. That is, ball's dead. Nobody's out. You just have to go back to first. There was no intent. It's just like do-overs. Nothing happened. And so when he threw the ball and it ricocheted off, my first thought was conflating that with that rule, which it wasn't, but that's what I did. And so Odor immediately broke for the play. There was no delay in him. Once he saw the ball was scooting on the turf, he was gone. The Jays were Donaldson at third base was not only back because there were 2 outs and there's no reason to be up, but they were also in a bit of a shift with
Chu, a left-hander, so they're going to shift.
Right. So there was nobody near the ball.
Right.
I mean, the fact that it wasn't a situation where they had a shot at Odor and then they stopped because I called time.
Right.
That didn't happen. My calling time had zero to do.
He would have scored even if he didn't. He would have scored
and without even an attempted play. They wouldn't have been at the ball yet. So, but as I'm calling time and I'm walking out, I'm flashing through my mind, and after a second or two, I'm thinking, why am I calling time? why are my arms up right now? Because I realized that's a live ball. So I knew pretty quickly that I had screwed up, but I also knew that in my mind, before Jeff even got there, this is all happening quickly.
Yeah.
But I also realized that there was nobody near that baseball. Yeah. So file that away. Here comes Jeff, and of course Jeff is a former catcher, and Jeff can be tough on umpires. But for some reason, I got along with him rather well. We had a rain situation earlier. I don't know if it was that year, maybe the year before, whatever. But with him. In New York that he, was strange. And I think I got a lot of respect from him because I handled it the way I handled it. So anyway, he said, Dale, why that ball's not dead? He goes, I had this as a catcher. Well, I'm glad you had it because I've never had a catcher throw, but he goes, that ball's alive. And at this point I knew I had screwed up, but I said, Jeff, I said, hold on. At this point now I have protocol I need to go through.
Yeah.
I need to get I need a crew consultation. I need to get the crew together because I want to make sure we're all on the same page and we're all going to do the right thing. You don't want to do something and then have to roll that back or whatever. So hold on. I bring the crew in. I made sure my mic was off. I didn't want Fox listening to what I was saying, or whoever was broadcasting. Anyway, and I said, guys, I think I screwed up here. Of course, I have my hand here because I don't want anybody to read.
You don't read lips because they have it. I don't remember the exact footage, but I'm pretty sure they would have it like zoomed in with you guys gathered together.
Oh, absolutely. And I learned that years ago when I'm talking, because once I was caught saying something I probably shouldn't have said. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that again. I said, I think I screwed up here. And I explained everything. And I said, and they said, yeah, that's a live ball. I said, okay. I said, my calling timeout had nothing to do with that play. In other words, I didn't prevent anyone from fielding that ball or making a play on Odor, nor did I do anything to slow down Odor, which, by the way, he never slowed down. He went flying through. And they all said, no, there's no way, if you had not called time and let it go out, he would have scored easily. And I said, I know that too. I said, so this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to score this run. I'll take care of John, meaning John Gibbons.
John Gibbons, yeah.
The Jays manager, because I had a feeling he had something to say.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I score the run, and here comes John. And no, the ball's dead. The ball's dead. And I said, no, John. I said, and I explained to him. He goes, well, he interfered. The hitter interfered. I said, no, he didn't. He's just standing there. I said, well, the ball's got to be dead. You called it dead. It's dead. I said, I called it dead. I was wrong. That ball's alive, and I'm not going to, as an umpire, one of our credos is common sense, fair play, and common. What's fair and what makes sense. Was it fair for me to take a run off the board for the Rangers by my mistake?
Right.
No, and common sense tells me, even though I called time, and technically, if you call time, the ball's dead, and whatever. But I called time. I shouldn't have. It had no effect on the play. I'm going to score this guy, because I can justify that a lot easier than saying, well, I called time, so screw you.
That's it. Score. And in game 5 too, winner take all.
Plus, quite frankly, Jeff would have a protest that he could win because I misapplied a rule
Right.
by calling time when it shouldn't have been called. So John said, and he's trying everything. Oh, it was interference, or it was time, or it's a do-over and whatever. And of course, and I explained everything and this and that. He goes, well, I want to protest. I said, okay. I said, what are you protesting? And he goes, I protest all of it. I protest everything. I protest all of it. I go, well, it doesn't work that way. You can't have a blanket protest. I said, I said, you need to, the thing about John Gibbons, I've had him a long time. I like John. We get along well. I've ejected him. I've had issues with him, but he he's not somebody, we're not oil and water, so to speak, when we talk about things. I said, John, I almost laughed. I said, John, you can't just protest everything. I said, what specifically are you protesting? And he said, well, I protested that, the ball should be dead. I said, okay, that's great. Cause it shouldn't be, but now that he's protest, I have to go to the headsets as protocol, because you have to make sure that we applied the rule correctly, blah, blah, blah. That was confirmed. I let the press box know that this game is officially under protest. I went back to John. He said, all right. You've been protest is lodged. This is what we're due. Chelsea already said blah blah blah. I said we got to go. We're going now. And he goes, and I finally just said, John, do you want to get run? Do you want me to run you? Because he never said anything to get run. He was
yeah. We're now
at the point now. This is what we're doing. And so either you accept it and we move on, or I eject you and we move on. But either way, we're moving on. And so. He's no, I don't want to get run. I said, okay, all right, sit down. Let's go. And so that's what we did, and we started the game back up.
That is
get into the bottom of the seventh, and then the errors and what we talked about with the Rangers, and suddenly it's a tie game, and now here comes Batista, and boom, 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 and when he hit that, sometimes when a ball's hit, I think, oh, there's no way that's going out, and it ekes out. Other times, I think that thing's gone, and somehow the wind knocks it off, or it just isn't as deep as I thought. He hit that, and it was gone. It was a bomb, and the roar of that, of course we're in a dome, but the roar of that crowd was, unbelievable. I mean, it was just a jet engine, right next to your ear type thing. But I'm following the ball as it's hit, and now the side, I kind of see something, and I see the flip, and I thought, oh, this should be interesting. Because I mean, that's just it's, I'm sure this isn't going to go over well, and so all that happens, and we finally got off the field, and I'm not happy that I called time. I made a mistake there. I am happy how I handled the whole situation,
of course,
because I handled it in a fair and responsible way, and again, we got the play right. I just didn't look good doing it, basically. Getting there. But the point is, our job is to get plays, pitches and plays, and rulings right, and we did. The next year, of course, I have those two teams in Arlington.
In Arlington, did you, when you came in, and the first thing though, before there, I just have one quick question on there. Do you think, people have said that umpires should have microphones when, like, the NFL or NBA, that they're announcing what's being challenged or what the ruling is? Do you think that should be the case?
Well, it already is. It was in the new CBA with the umpires last year, but because of COVID, they didn't implement it. And I think this year they haven't implemented it yet, because I think by maybe the All-Star game going forward, you may see that. It's already in our contract, so it's going to happen now.
Okay.
But it just hasn't been implemented because of COVID last year, and because there's no people in the stands right now. There are in some places, but not others. Whatever. But it will be. When I got our schedule for the next year in 2016, those two clubs only play each other once in each park, and they played early. They played like late April, early May in Toronto, 3 games, and then they were playing mid-May
in Arlington,
and that was it. They were done seeing each other in May, in the middle of May. So we bid on schedules, blah blah blah. I got the schedule I wanted, but I told you, I said, guys, look at this. We have the Texas Toronto game. or series. And I saw that we had the second series. So I thought, well, maybe a couple weeks earlier, they'll just beat the crap out of each other in Toronto and get it out of their system. And then maybe we'll have a smooth series here. Of course, knowing full well that wouldn't be the case. So they went to Toronto, and it was
all fine. It was all mellow.
It was like church. And first 2 games in Arlington, everything's fine. First, few innings of that third game. And but everybody knows what's going on. I mean, everybody knows that it's no surprise. Now we had actually had before that even happened. I believe that was the 8th inning. I believe,
yes,
7th or 8th. But before that even happened, in the I think 3rd or 4th, I ejected the first base coach for Toronto for being a dick. Excuse me. And
you're good.
and I. Danny Isonia, who had the plate, ejected Gibbons for in the bottom of that inning for pitching about pitches. So we already, that was just kind of an appetizer to what was going to be coming up. But sure as heck, here comes Batista with nobody out, leading off an inning. It was 7th or 8th, I forget, but
I believe it was the 8th.
Yeah. And so, I'm thinking, okay, this is by all accounts, unless we go extra innings, this will be his last at bat. This is their last chance. There's nobody on. I mean, the scenario is set up perfectly. If you're gonna whack this guy, this is the time you do it, right? And first pitch, and it wasn't a headhunter, but first pitch, boom, in the ribs, boom, you go to first. That's a warning. Boom, warnings are out because we're gonna. You got your shot in. We're done now, boys. It's like that's in theory. And Batista came down. I had first base. He came down to first, and he was bitching and moaning to anybody that listened. That they were gutless and they were this and they were that. And Scott, why don't you eject him and throw him? And I say, hey, why don't you just do your job and I'll do mine. And so now he's at first base, and I believe there was an out. I forget.
It was a
fly ball or something.
It was I believe. Are you talking about how the fight started?
No. Batista. The fight started with 1 out. There was Batista got on first, or maybe there was a hitter before Batista, and there's 1 out, and I'm thinking, okay, now he's been hit. So now the worst thing that can happen now is a double play ball or a base hit where he's going first to third and there's a play at third or farther play at home, because now he can barrel into somebody and be it, do whatever he's going to do. But I thought, maybe if we get a fly ball out and then a strikeout or something, this whole thing might be over after this, because they hit him and that, we have an inning left and blah, blah, blah. But sure as heck, it's a double
ground ball
and to third, and they throw to second, and I don't see what happens at second because the throw did get off by Odor, although it was wild, and I'm following the ball because that's what I do. I'm the first base umpire. I mean, I didn't actually see the actual hit until I saw it on replay later. But as the wild throw goes to my right, to my left, and toward the stands, the Ranger dugout's right there. All of a sudden I see all these guys pouring out of the dugout, and I thought, well, this is interesting. So I look over, and of course everybody's just heading to second base, and here we go. So we as umpires, when you have a bench clearing, basically our motto is, get the hell out of there, because there's 50 of them and there's 4 of us. And now we just take numbers and observe. And when we can,
as far as breaking it up, let the coaches do that.
Well, we'll jump in when we can, but we're not going to be in the middle of this. But this was a good one. I mean, Gibbons comes back on the field. He was ejected 5 innings earlier. So that's an automatic suspension, but that's not up to me, but that's a big no-no. But Bannister was fired up, and in fact, it's at one point after the scrum and everything was going on, and things were kind of calming down, and then but not with Jeff. Jeff was screaming at, and then John screaming at him, and so now we're separating the managers. Lance Barrett took Jeff. I was taking John. It's like let's. finish this off. Finally we get both teams to their respective dugouts, and that's when the four of us got together and said, okay, who do you got? We're gonna figure out who's leaving this game, so I think we had 6 ejections on that, and so the game continued. The very first hitter for once we got going, very first hitter for Texas,
good old Prince Fielder.
Yes, exactly. Prince Fielder, boom, he gets hit. All right, pitcher's ejected. Now the acting manager, DeMarco Hale, he's ejected. So there's 2 more ejections, but and the teams came out, but they didn't go goofy. They just came out and stood around, and that was basically the end of it. Now, when the world saw this shot that Odor gave Batista, which is, in all my years of baseball and baseball brawls, so to speak, which are usually not very brawly,
right?
There's only one other time back in '93 or something, Oakland at Milwaukee, when I saw a hit like that. Edwin Nunez, relief pitcher, decked BJ Surhoff. BJ was being held back, looking this way, and got blindsided. I mean, just Rocky Rowe and I happened to just both saw it, and we looked at each other and went, I mean, I think Surhoff was just going down and said, "Mommy," I mean, he was like, it was a solid hit, but that Odor hit. Now, Batista's not the most well-liked guy around, even with other players, even with, I think, some teammates. I mean, he can, he's a little surly, just a lot of things, but, and I got to give him credit. He didn't go down. I mean, Odor gave him that shot and he stayed up, because that was a shot. I mean, that was a clean, wow shot. But I asked Odor, I don't know, 2-3 weeks later, we had the Rangers, and I said, "Hey," did you get a few congratulations from guys around the league after your shot with Batista?" He goes, "You have no idea." He goes, "I had so many guys from different teams saying, 'Good job, way to go.'" I mean, they were just like praising him for the shot that he gave that day. So, and we joked and laughed about that a little bit, because I said, I think I told him, I said, because you probably had a few umpires say to go, "Oh, I've had the whole staff." You think? He goes, "I think I have the whole staff of umpires have said, 'Hey, good job, kid.'"
That's amazing.
But it was a heck of a hit. It was a heck of a series of events. I mean, that playoff game, the playoff series was pretty wild anyway, but that game, and particularly that 7th inning, was unbelievable. And then, of course, lucky us to have the the Sunday afternoon at the fights there at Arlington the next year. So that was good too.
Dale, I mean, we have so much to talk about, and I know we're kind of running low as far as time goes, but I also, one thing is that you, now since you've been retired, you are, one thing I've commend you on, you are openly gay. You and your husband doing really well. I read the story regarding how it happened. It's kind of like how I would, when it was like face to face, where I would be like, just kind of like saying something, kind of like hinting, where in your case, you like handed a picture and just like, okay, this is the caption, and just let the whole world, just let the readers figure it out.
And see what happens. Yeah. And that almost went unnoticed. That was a story in Referee Magazine that I submitted as one of the photos, one with Mike and I, with the caption, Dale Scott with his longtime companion, Michael Roush, on their way to Australia. It almost went unnoticed there, because Referee Magazine is a subscription only magazine. Yeah. It's I think it's got 40,000 subscribers or something, but it's, you don't get on the newsstand. It wasn't online. The story is now, I think, but it's, it wasn't online. And that kind of stuff. So it almost, when that magazine came out, and there's crickets, except one subscriber, a D1 college football official who's gay, who's not out, but he saw that, and he got a hold of outsports.com, and they contacted me and wanted to do an interview. And this was right literally when the week we were going to get our playoff assignments, and we're getting into the postseason in 2014, and I just I said, listen, I'll give you a full interview after the World Series. I said, I just don't want to do that now, and that's what we did. It dropped online on December 2nd. I was kind of, in fact, Jim Brzezinski did the article, wrote the story, and he said, like right before like the day before Thanksgiving, he said, "Hey Dale, just let you know, this will be on online December 2nd." I said, "Okay," and I really didn't think that much about it because, after the referee magazine thing, I thought, whatever, out sports, no one's. I mean, the morning of the 2nd, it went online about 8:30 Pacific time. I was in bed. I woke up at about 9:10. I picked up my phone, and it was, I had text messages, missed calls, emails. I'm going, what is happening? Oh, and it within a half hour of them, it was on ESPN, it was on the CNN, it was on, it was everywhere, and it had blown up. I finally saw firsthand the power and the speed of the internet. Unbelievable. Had by the next day over 200 email messages from around the world. I did several interviews. I picked and choose because I couldn't do all of them. I did some local stuff in Portland and Palm Springs. I did some other things. It was a whirlwind that day. Half the next day, I was actually flying to our Palm Springs from Portland the next day on a trip that I'd already scheduled. I finally got on the plane. I shut my phone off. I thought for at least the next 2 hours, it's going to be peace and quiet. I opened up USA Today, and right on the front page of the sports section is my picture of this old, thing. And I just started laughing because you can't escape it. But it was, I had just nothing but positive feedback from, like I said, all over the world, from people I obviously never knew, straight, gay, bi, people were, parents saying, thank you. And I'm, proud of you or whatever, but I hope this is, my two daughters will grow up in a world where this won't even be news someday. And, which is my hope also. And, just a lot of positive feedback. I'm glad I did it. In some ways, I kind of wish I'd done it earlier, but you know what? It's all in your own time, and coming out is a very personal choice that one has to make. And it worked out well. Not to plug anything, but I'm writing a book. The manuscript's going to the publisher actually later this week. We've been working on this, Rob Nyer, writer, and myself, for quite a while, but intently for about 6 months. It is due to be published and released next April or May of next year. So don't have a title yet. We're still working on that, but some of these, it's baseball stories, umpire stories, my career and minor in major leagues over 37 years, but also, the first active openly gay male official in the Big Five sports, and how I hid that for years in the minor leagues, and my career in the big leagues, and then how eventually everybody knew in baseball, the other umpires and the people I work for, but teams and media and fans, they didn't know until I came out.
Did any of like the players or any umpires kind of reach out and give you
well, the umpire, the staff knew, and I got funny texts from guys on the staff. So, you're gay? Really? God, that's weird. It's like, my first, and I came out publicly in December, so baseball wasn't going on. My very first spring training game of the 2015 season was the Reds and the Indians in Goodyear, or wherever they play.
Yeah, it's Goodyear. Yeah, it's Goodyear.
Goodyear. Yeah. And so, I had the bases. It was kind of weird just walking on the field then, because I knew, even though it had been a couple months, that this was the first time I was walking on any type of a baseball field in uniform where I am out there now. If somebody just say, "Hey, who's that number 5?" Oh, well, he's gay. Huh? Even if they did, it's out there, right? So, it was the first game. Nothing going on. About the third inning, I switched over to third base. Marlon Byrd, longtime outfielder for several teams, but he was playing for the Reds, then as he's running in, he goes, Dale, and he comes up and he gives me this huge bear hug, which is not necessarily what you're supposed to do as players and umpires. I mean, a lot of guys will say hello or whatever, but he gives me a big bear hug, and he goes, Dale, he goes, I am so proud of you. You're free, man. You're free. And I was like, wow, well, thanks, Marlon. I just certainly didn't expect that. Later that game, Joey Votto, as he was done for the day and was heading to the clubhouse, he came by, walked by me, and he shook my hand, and he congratulated me. That was 2 players that very first day. The rest of the season, I heard from one third base coach. Somebody that said something to me, a third base coach, one other player, and a trainer. And that was it. That was it, which is fine. You know, in fact,
of course,
in the interviews that I did when this all happened in December, and you know, one of the questions was, how do you think the reaction will be with players and managers and stuff when baseball starts up? And I said, you know, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that they're much more interested in me getting pitches and plays right than what I do off the field. And so, and that's basically what it was. And I didn't, believe it or not, didn't hear anything derogatory that year from the stands. Some of the vast majority of the message, I only had a couple just stupid homophobic, weird messages. But I had a couple fun, one just to pass along. It was actually a online story and a comment. So, you know, anybody can say anything because you know who they are. Right. And this was some anonymous guy, but he said, I am shocked that Dale Scott came out as a Oregon Duck fan, because that was in the story. Right. And then the next sentence he said, but it's not surprising with all their uniform changes. And so that to me was hilarious, because that is funny. But you know, it was business as usual, which it should have been. It's like I said in interviews, I'm glad that Major League Baseball has always evaluated me on my work and not who I am. And that's the way it should be. And so it's been a positive experience. I'm hoping that someday it's one that will be, you know, baseball's been pretty tight-lipped about stuff. Yeah.
Just 100% accepted, and you know, that's just business as usual, and that it's not a big deal. And you wonder, because we're still waiting for the first actual player, and you've got to, with everything going on and everything being so pinpoint that, you know, you don't know what will happen. And with media, you kind of giving it not really a hard time, but just so much focus. I'm curious to see how that'll go. I'm really curious.
You know, part of the thing was, for years they said, well, if a player did that, they'd lose endorsements, and you know, and they would, you know, be shunned or whatever. And of course, there's the clubhouse dynamics of being in a clubhouse and that kind of stuff. But things have changed a lot, and you know, and one of the reasons I came out publicly, because Mike and I, although we at that time had been together like 28 years. We were legally married. We finally could legally get married. And I thought to myself, you know, our community has made a lot of sacrifices. People fought for this, and, you know, and you know, for years, but it fought for this, and it's come about. And we actually, you know, got married, and it just seemed hypocritical for me at that point to continue this charade that my coworkers knew about, the people in the front office knew about. You know, it wasn't like I was in the closet. I mean, you know, at home, I mean, I was out. It's just why I wasn't out, you know, publicly. And it helped. Let's be honest. I had been, you know, I was a 28, 29 year veteran. I was a crew chief. I had World Series. I was an established umpire. I wasn't just trying to just start in the big leagues and trying to make a name for myself or whatever. So the way I figured, you know, I got to the point, quite frankly, Alex, is, you know, it's just get older. It's like, if you have a problem with it, it's your problem. It's not exactly. It's really not my problem.
It's just who you are.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, it doesn't change anything. Like, your knowledge is still the same. It's like, now you just know something additional about me, and that's it. I mean one lady, she wrote, she goes, I'm a longtime Yankee season ticket holder. I want to congratulate you and Mike, and I hope you have a great life, and just everything positive. Yeah. Next paragraph. However, as a longtime Yankee season ticket holder,
how can you have made these calls that I've seen you make against the Yankees? What were you looking at? And again, to me, I loved that. It was somebody that said, hey,
yeah, I do too.
You're gay. And I think that's great. And congratulations. But I still have a real problem with this, with this call over here. You know, I'm an umpire that happens to be gay, not the gay umpire, you know, and,
right.
and that's what we're striving for.
I tell people all the time, like, if you disagree with my opinions on Joey Gallo because you have evidence to back it up, or the evidence I bring isn't good, I'm fine with that. But don't disagree with my opinion on Joey Gallo because I'm gay. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, because obviously your issue is nothing to do with Joey Gallo.
Right. There you go. Dale, man, it was so great talking to you. I wish you the absolute best. And we'll see what happens regarding Major League Baseball and replay and automated zones. It should be intriguing going on. But it was just great to just talk baseball with you.
Well, I appreciate the offer to come on, and thank you for that. And we'll move forward. You know, baseball is a great game. Hopefully, we can work out the little kinks that are happening here and there, and continue to move forward and continue to enjoy the game, because it's a great one. And who knows, I might even be down in Arlington next month. You know, absolutely.
And this will surely not be the last. I will try to see to bring you on again, because I mean, just the knowledge alone is fascinating. And if I need any umpire inputs to you always want to bring perspectives from everywhere.
Yeah, I may not convince anybody, but I can at least tell you maybe why something happened, or what the thinking of it, if nothing else. But now you have to understand, Alex, my fees go way up on my second and third appearances. So you just see it.
Saving up. That's why you got the day job going.
Atta baby.
Dale, thank you so much. Is there any things outside your book that you want to plug? Is there
well, I'm Scared Charities. I'm wearing the shirt here. I'm Scared Charities. I've obviously it's our charity, Major League Umpires. They do great work. I was fortunate enough to do several children's hospital visits when I was working, and they are just gut wrenching, but to see the smiles and things is really something. But go to umpscare.com, make a donation if you can. If you're thinking of donating to some kind of a cause, that's a great cause. You can go to their website and see what they do. And I certainly would hope that you give it a shot.
Thank you so much, Dale. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at APlinkTX, Instagram at APlinkTEX. And for Texas Rangers coverage in this exciting 2021 season, DallasSportsFanatic.com/Texas-Rangers. Ranger fans, hopefully you're enjoying the first month and a half of the season. I have a feeling it's going to be a good one. They may not make the postseason, but this is a fun group that they got in Arlington. And Dale, hopefully next month you can see this fun group in Arlington. Thank you so much.